Welcome to the With Winning in Mind podcast. I'm Heather Sumlin with
Troy Bassham.
And we are so incredibly excited to have Jane Kennedy with us today. Jane is one of my clients, has been for the last couple of years, and we're just going to get to know a little bit more about her. And I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about who you are and why you work with us, and give us a little bit of your backstory.
Sure. Well, yes, I'm thrilled to be on the podcast with both of you. Mental management has played a huge role in my story, especially over the past 5 or so years. As Heather mentioned, I first came to mental management because I was competing in the Miss America organization. I competed 4 times for Miss California, and in my last year, placed first runner-up. And a huge part of that journey for me was really starting to understand the importance of the mental game, because as someone who grew up always wanting to perform, always wanting to achieve, I knew the value of hard work. And I always thought that, the only way you can get better, the only way you can achieve your goals is by putting in the time and the effort. And when I finally encountered Heather and mental management, I realized that the hard work matters, but it's about working really smart. And it's about not only doing the hard work, but reminding yourself and having the mental confidence to remind yourself that you have done that work. So before pageants, I started pageants when I was 17. It was never something I thought I would do. Growing up, I was really involved in musical theater. I love to perform. I did a lot of shows growing up. I also was really involved in my community. My mom and I were in National Charity League. I grew up spending my Saturdays serving with my grandparents at Loaves and Fishes, which is a soup kitchen in near where I grew up in California. And I just loved being in the community, and I loved being on stage. And so when I was a junior in high school, I heard about the Miss Teenage California competition, where the winner won a $10,000 scholarship. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. I get to be on stage. I get to wear a pretty dress. And if I win, I get to do a bunch of community service, and I win money for school. So it seems like a no-brainer to me. I remember my mom and I got in the car, went down to LA to compete. I really thought it would be a breeze. Don't really think I did very much preparation at all, and competed. And then, as pageants typically have, a preliminary and then a final competition, competed in the prelims, was standing on stage, and absolutely did not make the finals. And I remember not making the finals and standing off stage and thinking okay, what are these girls on stage doing that I miss? What did I mess up? Because I, at that point was pretty confident in my ability to be on stage and to connect with people. I knew I had a good story, and I wasn't, in the finals. And so I remember all the girls around me were, crying in the wings, and it's very sad when you don't make the finals, but I was just peeking out of the curtains, watching everyone. And I realized that there was something those girls knew that I didn't, and I wanted to figure it out. But I didn't have 10 years to figure it out because I was 17, and pageants have an expiration date. So that month I reached out to a pageant coach in California, and I said, look, I know this is kind of crazy. I've never done this, but I really want to do well, and I think I can, and I need your help. And she worked with me. We worked together a few times. And then 2 months later, I was 4th runner-up at the National American Miss California teen pageant. So that was really the first moment I realized, okay, I can do this if I have the right tools. And at that moment, I started to build up that tool set. So I competed again for that competition the next year. I ended up winning. I got to go to National American Miss Teen Nationals. I was in the top 5 there. And so that was when I realized, this dream of Miss America, which seems so out of reach, is getting closer and closer. And I continued to meet people who invested in me, invested in my talent, invested in my interview preparation. It was hugely formative being 17, 18, 19 years old and going to college and having opportunities to step out of the college bubble and really be in the community and really represent a brand. The opportunities it gave me were just tremendous. And then, I went to Miss California for the first time in 2015. Heather knows this story. I just had her on my podcast and told her, but I was really excited to be there. I was really nervous. I wanted it so badly. And during my talent competition, I was playing the piano, and I forgot my talent about 20 seconds into the competition, which is the most embarrassing thing ever, because you're supposed to be out there for 90 seconds. And I wanted it so badly. And I remember walking off stage, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't breathe. I was so disappointed in myself. And at that point too, I really cared about not letting everyone else down. And I felt like I had just let all these people down, people who had told me that they had such high expectations for me and had, said all these things that at the time I thought were helpful, but ultimately just added pressure to me in my first experience on the Miss California stage. So I think that was probably the first time I realized the importance of the mental game. I'd had some other experiences on stage where when I was in the finals for National American Miss, you have to do your introduction again. And I stumbled over a couple words. And I think, I had been backstage and a girl had come up to me and basically said, like, you've practiced, right? Because if you get up there, you can't forget it. And then I went on stage and like totally forgot it. So it was just things like that I realized I had practiced that thousands of times. I'd practiced that talent song thousands of times. But if you don't have the space in your mind to be where you need to be in that moment, all that hard work can go down the drain. So I took a year off from Miss California. I got to work in the White House, which was one of the best experiences of my life. And I came back with a new sense of confidence in myself. I didn't feel like I had to prove it myself anymore. I felt very confident in who I was and what I had to offer. And that next year at Miss California, I ended up placing in the top 15. And then that was when I decided to listen to the book, the audio that Heather had put together for pageant people. I don't know if you want me to stop. I feel like I've been talking about my story for a while, but that was my first introduction to finally meeting you all and getting involved.
So how'd you find the audio?
Yeah. So my mom's best friend is a surgeon, and she had told my mom she had to go through a lot of board tests basically. And she had worked with a mental management coach. And so my mom, who's a very, very smart woman, had basically been saying from the time I began pageants, I think you should work with a mental coach. I think you should just have some tools for mental toughness in your tool belt. And I, kind of laughed it off. I was like, it's fine. Like, I work hard. Like, I'll be fine. I'm a confident person, which I'm sure you all hear all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm confident I'll be fine. And then I think once I made the top 15, as anyone who competes, I'm sure in any sport knows, once you start to get into those groups of high performers, you feel this pressure of, I have to get better. And there's less and less places to get better because there's less and less positions. Once you make the top 5, there's only a few positions above that. And so I think that was the first time I thought, okay, I should probably invest in this.
I should have listened to Mom in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah, story of my life.
Yes, yep. Children. That is teenagers. Listen to your mom.
So what'd you do? Just Google or something? Or
yeah, I did. I Googled mental management, pageants, mental game, and you have great SEO because you came up first. And I remember buying the audio, and I actually was just before this, I went and found all my notes. I took meticulous notes on everything Heather said. I didn't know her personally at the time, and it just totally shifted so much of my perspective on how I needed to be performing, especially how I needed to be preparing. Mm-hmm. Because up until that point, I had just been throwing, spaghetti at the wall and doing everything 100% all the time. And then to start thinking about I should think about how I'm going to approach the situation of what I do when I'm on backstage and about to go out. What's something I can do to calm down? Because those moments are so critical to your performance, is what happens right before you get on stage and where your mind is right before you get on stage. And so I used those notes to go into my 2018 year, and I placed 4th runner-up that year. And I was really happy with my performance. But at that point, it was even more of the I'm sure it's similar in most sports, but the pressure again increases and increases. And so at that point, I think that I like people, and I have, I want people to like me. And I like that sense of kind of, I didn't want to let people down. And so as soon as I was in that top 5, people started to, reach out, again, well-meaning, but I think that pressure really started to mount for me. And I knew that, I knew I had a good shot at winning the next year. And so that was when I wanted to put everything out on the table, and reached out to Heather and said, I'd like to, mostly because I wanted to do the performance journal, and I had no idea how to do that. And I felt like that would be really helpful for me. So that I think is why I first reached out to Heather, was for help with that.
So I indirectly helped here, huh?
You did. So Troy's the reason we have the performance analysis journal.
Oh, thank you. I have them right here. I still keep them close to me. They're great.
That's fantastic.
What's interesting, so she listened to the Mental Toughness for Pageantry audio, which is about 4 discs. Now it's on download, soon to be on a subscription-based platform. And
Awesome.
so she listened to that. Then she signed up. I did like this 10-week email program, and I had
Yes.
forgotten that you signed up for that. And then she reached out to me after that, was like, I don't know how to do the journal. Help me. And let's talk. And so then that led to ongoing consultation. But what was cool is, so she placed first runner up at Miss California, and then she went to the Sweetheart pageant, which is basically where in the America system, if you placed well in your state, you get invited. Every state gets one representative to go to this national competition in Hoopston, right? And it's just a really cool experience. And tell us about how well you did there, my dear.
Well, yeah, I think my national sweetheart experience was very much due to the mental management strength, because I had come out of Miss California. I had gotten so close. And when you get that close to something, you're just like, oh my gosh, I was so close. What happened? Like, what could I have done better? And I knew that I'd worked really hard. And so thought, let me go to the national sweetheart competition. I'll meet new people. I'll have another chance to show what I have on stage. And I put so much work in, why not just go? And so I went, and I remember showing up there and I was like, oh man, this is not going to go great. Like, these girls were so amazing. And all these girls from the South, I feel like I'm an extroverted person, but I was a wallflower among these women. Like, they were just so fun and exciting. And it was just crazy. But yeah, so I went and I competed, and I really didn't think much was going to come of it, but I ended up winning Sweetheart last year, which was, or 2 years ago, I guess now, which was just like a cherry on top of my pageant experience, because I had wanted that national experience. Obviously, I had really wanted to go to Miss America, and I got to go to Sweetheart and have that Miss America experience. Like, I was in a parade and everyone was calling out like Miss California, Miss California. And it was just so sweet to feel like I could represent my state and then, yeah, do well. And I think a big part of that was the investment I'd made in the mental game, because, that was especially an experience I wasn't prepared for, because at Miss California, you're in a hotel. I'd been there 4 times. I know exactly what's happening, where we're going. I know the volunteers. In Hoopston, we're staying with families. The activities are very different. The way that the pageant is set up is very different. It has like a very deep history. It's been there for 60 something years. Many Miss Americas have competed there. Like, the way in which the competition is run and led is very different. So in that sense, I think that being able to have like a steady place to return to mentally, when the backstage looked very different, and like it was really helpful. And I think that was probably a huge competitive advantage for me, was being ready for that.
So then, instead of continuing on your pageant journey, you, as Dad says, you never give up, but you can trade up on a goal. So she basically traded up. So tell us what came next for you, because you didn't wind up winning a state competition, but you did continue on in your journey in life. So what happened next?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I had worked in the White House when I was in college. I loved DC and was really excited to get back to DC. And so after placing first run up at Miss California, I kind of knew I had one more year of eligibility. And I just felt like I had done. I felt like I was ready for something new, like you just said, ready to do something different. And an amazing opportunity came to me to move to DC. So I got to live in DC for the last 2 years, and a lot of that was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I'd worked in tech for 2 years. I'd worked in federal government, and then for the last 2 years, I worked in criminal justice reform. So it was trying to figure out where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to go back to graduate school, but couldn't quite figure out which degree made the most sense for me. And then ultimately, had a lot of conversations with people and realized I wanted to go to business school. So that a year ago, I started that process of applying to schools, taking the GMAT, which is the entrance exam for business school, talking to lots of people. It's kind of like a pageant. You have to present yourself and interview and write applications. And it was really cool to do that. And I reached right back out to Heather in the middle of that. And I knew that I wanted a little bit of accountability. And what Heather had done so well for me was not only help me in the mental side of it, but she was also a great accountability partner for getting things done and for managing stressful experiences, and at least the side I could, control, because so much of it, like the same with pageants and business school, you can't control everything. You don't know who else is applying. You don't know what they're looking for to fill out the class. And so, yeah, Heather was extremely instrumental in that process as well. And I'm in New York now. I'm at NYU at business school, and I started a couple weeks ago. It's just been a dream. So I definitely think it was a trade up of my goals, and I'm so happy that I'm here.
So go from Cali to DC to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess Texas is next.
I think so. That's where she'll ultimately wind up.
Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be fun?
I mean, you're
I
hitting
did
all
have
these.
a great weekend in Austin a few months ago. It was I like Texas, and I came to visit you all. I love Flower Mound.
Yeah, everyone's like, "Where's that? Where's Flower Mound?
Well,
Where's Flower Mound, man?"
it's northwest of Dallas.
It's
For those who don't know, it's about 30 minutes away from Dallas.
I told Heather I only know 2 people from Flower Mound, and I worked with both of them in the White House. So you all are breeding high achievers. In Flower
really?
Mound. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
So I knew about it before I met you.
Oh, that's cool.
surprises.
So what's something that you may have learned that you continue to use on a regular basis from either the audio or the training or?
Share your secret.
My secret. Well, I think I'll talk about 2 things. One, throwing this to you, Troy. I will say the performance journal, which I actually have right there. I think that, so this was my performance journal for.
Oh, got the teal color, huh?
Yes.
I have a black one too somewhere, but yeah. So I have them both here actually, but I started with the teal. And what was really helpful for me was I think that like I have a tendency, and speaking to friends, I think they do too, of doubting the effort and the work you've put into something and forgetting how much time and effort you've put into something. And so when I was applying, I actually used this for business school too, but when I went to Miss California, there were some moments backstage where I just felt like, have I even done enough work to get here? Like, have I done what I expected of myself? And I could just sit down and I wouldn't even really read the pages. I would just like kind of flip through the pages and remind myself, oh shoot, like this thing is full. I really did a lot of work here. I even had like calendars of like the stuff I'd worked on every day. Like I think that, as you know, our minds are very tricky, and sometimes we can, something can get into our mind and start to like tear us down a little bit. And this was helpful. And I actually brought it to Sweetheart too. And my very last entry was the day before the Sweetheart finals. So like the journal perfectly fit until that day of right before the finals. So I was able to bring it to Sweetheart too and use it as kind of just a sounding board of, oh, I've done the work. And so I think I use my planners now and I journal every day, and I use those things to remind myself, like I've put the work in. I think that's been really helpful. I think also just the sense of like remembering what you can control and what you can't control is really helpful, because, I have a lot of friends who just competed at Miss California and at Sweetheart. Actually, Miss National Sweetheart was a couple days ago, who, when you are done with something, or when you age out of something or a journey ends, I think that it's very hard. And I'm actually really interested in this, and I'm sure you all have insight into this too, but kind of what you do after that point, because for so many people, like my focus for at least those last 2 years was like, I'm going to win this. Like, I want to win this. I'm ready for this. And when you're doing the journals and when you're talking about it, you're like, oh, I feel like I have this. Like I already won this, because that's what you're telling yourself is like, I've done the work. I'm ready for the job. Let's go. And so when it doesn't work out, it's kind of like, okay, so how do we, as Heather, you just said, how do we trade up, or how do we kind of move into that next chapter of what we're supposed to be doing without losing the value of what we gained, right? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when you lose something, you just want to forget about it and be like, I can't believe I tried that. Like I failed it. I don't ever want to think about it again. But when you've put the time into something like this, pageants especially, like the amount of people I've talked to at business school about pageants and things, like, well, people think it's really cool, first of all. Like on our first day of school, the dean got up and was talking about he was like, one of your classmates, like, has traveled to all 7 continents. And then he's like, one of your classmates, like he was doing this, like meet your classmates thing. And then he said something like, one of your classmates was a finalist in a Miss America competition. And like the entire room was like, what, who? Like everyone got so excited about that one.
It's Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, who is it? And so over the past couple of weeks, like without fail, once a day, someone will come up to me and be like, hey, so I heard you were like the Miss America person. And I was like, yeah, I was. And so that's been cool to talk to people about. Like, I think I have such a great perspective on it. And I do think a big part of that was working with Heather and thinking like, what has this given me? Like, it has given
Mm-hmm.
me so much, so much. I mean, the reason I got the White House internship, or the reason my resume was pulled from the pile, was because my boss was from Ventura County and I had just been Miss Ventura County. And so she was like, oh, this will be a fun person to talk to. Like, who knows? And then I got my job in tech because, you know, again, hundreds of people had applied, but my boss thought it was cool that I'd done Miss California. And she was like, oh, let's talk to her. So, like, that experience continues to serve me, even though I didn't necessarily get the, you know, reward or the ultimate victory I wanted. And so I think being able to have a strong mental like sense of self, and what is self-image, right? Like having
Mm-hmm.
that strong self-image that's based on something outside of pageants, and something Heather always said was, you know, have a goal beyond this. Like, this cannot be your life goal, because I also have friends who won state pageants. I have friends who've won national pageants. And when that ends, like, they're in the same place as the rest of us. It's like, oh shoot, I spent my whole life trying to be Miss, you know, international, whatever. And now I'm that, and now I'm not. Like, who am I? Right? Like, what do I do with my life? Um, and I think that being able to have a good sense of like self-image is crucial to parlay that experience into the next thing, which has been, you know, very helpful.
So outside of obviously going to school now, what else are you doing?
What else am I doing?
Well,
Yeah,
she started
so
a podcast, so that was
I
kind of
did.
fun.
Yes. Yeah. So I run a ministry called the Sunday Monday, which is about bringing your faith from Sunday into your work week on Monday. When I was living in San Francisco, I had a lot of friends who, yeah, it's great. Heather was actually on the last episode of it. If you want to go check that out.
That's pretty catchy.
The
That's
Sunday
like your
Monday
that's
show.
like your Wisdom Wednesday.
Your Sunday Monday
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thanks.
Sunday Monday. I like it.
Thanks. It was a Holy Spirit thing for sure. I did not come up with that, but yeah, it's been really cool to talk to women really in all stages of life, you know, single, married, with kids, who are working and trying to live their faith. I just think it's really important for people of faith to be in the world and to be in the secular world and in the workforce. And so just trying to share those stories, or in the workforce, if that's, you know, the choice that you want to make. And I think it's important to share those stories. So I think that has been kind of the side project after pageants. I was like, how can I continue to like have a place to be creative and to lead and to do what I want? And honestly, that was something that, you know, pageants kind of held me back from a little bit, because in a pageant social media, you can't really talk about God. And I felt like I was really pulling back part of myself in a lot of the ways in which I spoke about, you know, like how, like, my whole platform was cultivating confidence for life. And so when I went to a Catholic school, I could talk about it freely. I was like, you know, one of the most important things to do when you're feeling down is like, go to the Lord and say like, Lord, I just really need you. And I don't know what to do, but I couldn't say that at most of my, you know, visits. And so that was really cool for me, was having kind of the freedom now to like express that side of myself.
You did have like a really creative exercise that you would do with kids.
Yeah.
When you would go into schools and do your Cultivating Confidence program. I think Troy would find it interesting. Why don't you share?
Yeah,
it?
share.
Oh, yes. So I would go into schools with kids and I would bring note cards, like little index cards, and I would have them all write 5 things that made them confident. So it could be like, I'm kind, or I'm a fast runner, or I'm a good brother. I'm a good friend, whatever it was, and write 5 things that made them feel confident. And then I had them all put them in their desks or put them in their backpacks. And when they needed a little burst of confidence or they were feeling down, they could pull them out and remind themselves and read those 5, you know, affirmation statements. And I loved it. I brought my confidence card to Miss California. I brought it to National Sweetheart. I shared it, you know, with the judges in different aspects. And yeah, I loved it because it was, you know, a tangible way to really leave these kids with something. So yeah, over the course of I think I did that for about 3 years. That was my platform for the last 3 years. And there's over 10,000 confidence cards somewhere, whether it's in kids' backpacks or in, you know, their rooms or maybe the trash, who knows, but they're out there. And that was really cool to remember that I'd had that impact, you know, no matter what happened in competition.
Yeah, you know, Patrick Combs does something similar to that. He has a little affirmation card that actually it's a piece of paper. He writes a little affirmation, kind of what you're talking about, a confident thing.
Yeah.
You know, want to
Yeah.
achieve high levels. Of course, people probably don't know who Patrick Combs is, but he's the
author of Majoring in Success.
Yeah, he's authored a couple books. He's been a speaker all over the place, and he's also got a one-man show, which was a hit. That was really, really cool. Fun guy to talk to. Really, really intelligent guy. And one of the things that he challenged himself to reach new heights is you get down, because when you're trying to go for something that's up there, you're not going to just, oh, I'm there.
Right.
It's kind of like you see people going up a mountain and they slip, and it's like, oh my gosh, got to rethink this, and there's a little frustration involved. And so he would stop at a gas station, fill up his car, and while his car's filling up, because it takes about a minute, for your car to fill up, he'd pull out his wallet, take out this little card, open it up, and it would be those confidence statements, similar to what she's talking about. And it just pushes you right through those little hard times, but it confirms and validates those successes that you have. So I think that's really cool. The difference is, of course, he's doing it personally and he's an adult, and you're talking about influencing kids at a young age. I bet you one of those 10,000 kids is going to probably pick up on this and do a Patrick Holmes thing.
Maybe.
And but I could just keep this in my pocket. Next thing you know, it's in a wallet. They're 50 years old. They go, what is it you keep in your wallet all the time? Oh, man, it's my confidence builder. Or you called it what? Cultivating confidence?
Confidence card. Yeah. It was a confidence card. But yes, the platform was Cultivating Confidence.
Yeah, the confidence card.
Well, and that's so incredibly important because teenagers can be very negative or very hard on themselves. And so they could turn around at their neighbor and think several really great things about them, but thinking good about themselves is harder. And so I love that you were doing that. And I think
that was one of the coolest things is I would be in a classroom and, there's always that kid who would raise their hand and be like, I don't have anything to be confident about. And like some other kid in the back would be like, you're so good at drawing. You should write down that you're a good drawer. And like, oh, you're really good at kickball. Like the kids, and I think that's something I learned through pageants too, is like sometimes, or life, sometimes you have to bring those things into the light and say like, oh, I don't think I'm good at anything. And then you need the people around you to say, hey, no, don't believe that. Like you're good at this and this and this. And so inevitably in most classrooms that would happen. And some kid would say, what if you're not good at anything? Or like, what if you're not confident about anything? And, their classmates would pick them up, which was so cute. But yeah, you're totally right.
That's the advantage.
It's easier to see in other people.
Yeah.
Elementary kids. So my wife's been a teacher for, she's in her 18th year now.
Wow.
And she's taught kindergarten through 5th grade. And what I've discovered is they're brutally honest, like really brutally honest. So when they say, no, you're really good at this, they mean that. They're not just, making it up where, you get older in life and you might fudge something like, well, you're good at this. In the back of the mind, you're like, well, not really not, but I can't think of anything else. Where a 9-year-old just going to tell you, of course it goes both ways. They can be very hard on each other, but when they say something, it's just honesty, coming out. Okay. So before we run out of time, what's your future looking like? What do you see in the near horizon here? Because in a couple of years, NYU is done, right? You're going to graduate in no time.
Yep.
And you're on scholarship, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the next step after you take advantage of this?
Oh gosh. I think you come into business school with an idea of what you want. And so my goal is to move into consulting after I graduate. I'm really interested in doing management consulting for a couple of years, but ultimately I want to start my own company. And so I think I'm doing a couple of the entrepreneurial challenges at NYU this year and next year, I've already had some conversations with classmates about some business ideas. At this point, it's a cool idea to start something now in school when there's really, very little risk. So that I think ultimately is what I want to do. And I think I can kind of attribute the confidence I have in trying something like that to, in pageants and stuff, you fail in a very public way. Like you want something, you work for it, and then you fail. And so I think I'm pretty immune to like public failure at this point, which means that I feel a little bit more at ease with taking a risk and trying to start something. So yeah, that's kind of what's next. And then I have a really great team behind me for the Sunday Monday. I keep having these just amazing people reach out who want to help. So that's growing. And so hopefully that continues to grow.
You'll have to listen to her Sunday Monday show.
Yeah, everyone listen.
Got to put that on the list for sure.
You got to listen to the episode where she interviews me.
Of course. Yeah.
It was fun. It was really fun. And that's actually why I invited Jane onto our show, partly because I was like, wow, she's already doing the podcasting and she's so good at it. I would love to pick her brain on our show.
It's fun, isn't it? Like, it's really fun to get to talk to people. And I love listening to podcasts. So I did like 5 years of intensive listening to podcasts before I was like even brave enough to do it on my own. But it's awesome. I'm a big fan of the medium.
Do you have a favorite podcast that you listen to that you can share?
I do. I have a couple. My favorite one is Gretchen Rubin and Elizabeth Kraft have a podcast called Happier. And Gretchen Rubin is a social scientist. And I love it because it's very short and sweet. I think you both would really like it too. But she talks a lot about different ways to reframe problems and issues and just like little fun things to do to make your life just like a little happier. And it's just like fun and light. And I love their dynamic as sisters. So I'm a huge fan of the Happier podcast. And then, and they do like fun things, like they do lists like 21 and 21. So I have a list of like 21 goals I want to accomplish. And it's just cool. Like, I really like a lot of what they talk about. And then the sister Elizabeth is a TV writer in Hollywood, and she has a podcast too called Happier in Hollywood. And so it's her and her writing partner, Sarah Fain, and they talk about the process of developing shows. And they actually have a show on the air right now. They created the Fantasy Island reboot. So I feel like I have been part of Fantasy Island for the last 6 or 7 months because I listened to this podcast and I've heard about, casting and development. So those two podcasts I listen to religiously every week, which would be my favorites. And this one, of course, is my also favorite.
Her new favorite.
New favorite.
So Jane, close out with something that you think is maybe the best advice you've been given, or advice that you feel like will consistently help you throughout your life and that could help others.
I would say stay really curious. Like, I never would have done pageants if I had just, been a rational person and been like, why do I think I should do this? This is silly. Like, I just was interested and I tried it. I never would have applied for the White House if I had been a rational person and been like, there's no way I'm going to get this. Like, business school too, right? I mean, just everything I think I've done because I was curious about it and I was interested in it. And granted, that means that a lot of things haven't worked out. And I think that's something to also remember, is like going back and thinking about, a lot of things don't work out. And when you see people who seem to be very successful and it feels like, everything's worked out for them, like it usually has not. And so that's really been very helpful to me, is just to stay curious. And that's why I'm at business school. And again, that's why, I have an idea for what I want to do in a few years, but I just want to always stay pretty nimble and ready to check out, the next thing. But I think something can be gained from every experience, win or lose. And just being curious allows you to kind of adapt to the next thing.
Well, that explains her plant being named Felix.
Felix? What's the problem with Felix?
Felix the cat. Cats are curious. She's curious.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
And the plant now is a reminder to stay curious.
Yeah, so
that's right.
For those of you who might be curious, we had a whole plant conversation before we went live. So,
and she names
Jane
her plants.
names her plants.
Yes.
Who doesn't name their plants? Everyone names their plants.
I don't.
I don't name things that are probably not going to live long, because I pretty much.
Felix is 1.5. I'll have you know.
I do not have a green thumb, and so
these are good though, because these don't die that fast. Well, I mean, Felix has tried to die on me a couple times.
I really
I bring him back.
He's really pretty.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm very proud of you.
So much.
Proud of you for keeping your plant.
It was a birthday gift, which, by the way, you can't give people, it's the same as giving someone a cat for their birthday. This plant showed up on my doorstep. I didn't know who it was from. My friend finally told me, he said it. And I'm like, why did you send me a thing to keep alive? I just moved from DC to New York. I had to move with Felix without Felix dying. It was just, but I love him. So it's okay.
That's okay. And then you got him a sister.
And now he has a sister. Yeah. Felicity, who's out of the frame. But yes.
Awesome.
We're growing.
So basically, we are going to stay curious. We're going to write in our journal. We're going to continue to pursue greatness, even if our dreams have an expiration date. And we're going to take what we learn and apply it to what we do next. I think we've learned a lot today.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was a ball.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Awesome. We'll have to have you anytime. Have you back. Awesome.
Great. Sounds good. All right. Thank you.
Everybody, go ahead and like and subscribe to our channel so that you can see what's next.